Well, it's time once again to go out to the West Coast, the left part of the United States, and just to find out what's happening with Michael Snyder as he does a little episode of what he calls Culture Blast, which tells us what's happening at the theaters and on a few other mediums as well. Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm fine, Alex. How are things in the greatest city in the world?
I don't know. I'm not in San Francisco right now.
That's sweet. Hey, we're San Francisco homeboys, I know, but I do spend a lot of my time in Los Angeles, and this is, where you can find me much of the year. And, we endured a little bit of a rocket and a rolling earthquake recently, and, of course, it awakened me for about 30 seconds, and I went back to sleep while other people were screaming like little girls.
Well, I usually slept through those things.
Yeah, me too. LA's it's so different in some ways from San Francisco for me, beyond the obvious. For instance, media-wise, this is it's a melting pot, a parboiler. I went to the screening of Divergent last week, and as I was walking in, I noticed that there was another screening happening across the lobby, and I was curious. What could this be? I didn't hear about this. And Divergent is a big budget thing we'll mention shortly, based on a book series, young adult book series. So I thought, what is this? So I went over and I noticed there was a table full of DVDs, and they were DVDs of an animated film entitled Ahmed Saves America. This is, in fact, an animated version of that hack ventriloquist, hick reality TV talent show winner, Jeff Dunham's character, the dead terrorist puppet, Ahmed. It's a skeleton. It's unbelievable. Country Music Television invested in making a feature animation about this creature, and I think to myself that the society gets the culture it deserves, I think, and because of that,
Well, I had a run-in years ago with Jeff Dunham, and we were having our picture taken together. And he's sitting there with the old man puppet he's got or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's
ageism.
He's there. The puppet's in the middle, and I'm on the other side. And while we're having our picture taken, Dunham says to me, "I hear you hate ventriloquists." And I said, "No, it's not Oh no, wait a minute." He says, "I hear you hate prop comics." And I said, "No, I don't hate prop comics. It's ventriloquists I can't stand."
Thank you very much.
And Dunham doesn't even do a take, okay? But the dummy turns his head and bares his teeth at me.
Oh my God! I'm not saying that's passive aggressive. That's aggressive. Anyway, so I would be okay about this. I looked at the trailer. Even if it was slightly funny, I might be okay. Of course, it's just idiotic and jingoistic bull.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was going on across the lobby, and I did go to see Divergent, and I'm kind of a divergent. I don't know much about the books. I went in pretty cold, and I have to say,
no, you didn't go in cold. You had figured that line out before you even went in.
No. Here's one thing I did figure out after I had seen it. A better title would have been Hunger, Potter, and the Twilight Games of Soapy Dystopian Doom. All it is an amalgam of all these young adult cliches as a young girl in a dystopian Chicago in the future has to choose what sect she will join. Will she be, what faction? Will she be the Brainy faction? I think they're called the Erudites. Is she going to be the Crunchy Granola faction? I think they're called the Care Bears. I don't even know what these people are called. But she ends up.
I think maybe how about the Crips and the Bloods? That might
that would be okay. You can choose one. You're born into them. But anyway, there's something really horrible and sinister going on as the Brainy faction wants to team up with the power mongers. Anyway, Shailene Woodley plays the Kristen Stewart character or the Emma Watson character or whatever, who's deciding that she's not going to be a giver anymore. She's going to be part of the ass kickers. And it's pretty weak stuff. And there's a weak romance, and there's a lot of fighting and a lot of CGI of a destroyed or partially destroyed Chicago. Yawn, and double yawn.
Okay. Yeah, well.
All right. Speaking of things that are unexpectedly, delightful, like running into the Ahmed screening. I went to see.
By the way, don't tap on your table and stuff because we can hear that.
I can't prevent myself from tapping on the table. I'm so excited about Nymphomaniac Volume 1.
Lars von Trier.
Lars von Trier's new film about a nymphomaniac. And he's teaming up with some of the people that have been in earlier films of his. He has his little repertory company. In this case, the grown-up version of the Nympho is played by Charlotte Gainsbourg, who has been in a couple of his movies. And also... one of the other main characters is Stellan Skarsgård, who is an older man who discovers her beaten in an alley and takes her home. And as she's recovering from being beaten, she tells the story of her adolescence and growing up. And she is portrayed in the flashbacks by Stacey Martin, a young actress, and everybody's tearing their clothes off and having a grand old time. Christian Slater is in this as her dad. Connie Nielsen is her mom. Uma Thurman steals this first part of the story with an amazing scene as a scorned woman with children confronting her husband who has basically cheated on her with the Nympho. And Shia LaBeouf takes me out of the entire thing because he's really not a very good actor as one of the great loves of the Nympho's life. And so it sort of undermined the movie to me, and then you're left with kind of a cliffhanger before part 2, which I haven't seen. So can I really say, this is great, or this is blah? I can tell you I enjoyed watching it, except for Shia LaBeouf, Nymphomaniac.
Okay.
Rob the Mob is a very entertaining docudrama, I guess you'd call it, crime docudrama, set in New York City in 1991 about a young couple played by Michael Pitt and Nina Arianda, and well played, kind of working class lovers who are also involved in petty crime, and they take the initiative to rip off a florist on Valentine's Day and end up getting in trouble. He goes away to prison, but when he gets out, they decide they're going to rob mafia social clubs because the cops won't care if the mafia gets ripped off in their minds.
Right.
It's actually a great story, and they have a wonderful cast, including Andy Garcia as a mob leader, Ray Romano as a journalist who's sort of seeking out the story of these bold and maybe stupid, maybe foolish lovers, and a few other good supporting actors from the New York scene. Really enjoyed Rob the Mob. It's something that may fall through the cracks, but I thought it would be really entertaining. You're going to love it on video if you get a chance.
Okay.
Speaking of video, Veronica Mars, the movie is out, and I really wonder sometimes about these projects that are spun off of TV shows, and I love the fact that the fans were so fervent that they raised a bunch of money to do this. But, if you don't watch the show, it's hard to be emotionally invested in the characters. The teenage girl played by Kristen Bell back on the show, who inadvertently becomes kind of a Nancy Drew for the modern era. Her father, a disgraced sheriff who goes to private investigation, and what happened to this girl's high school friends when one of her best buddies is murdered. And that was the nut behind the show. And the movie picks up where she's a grown woman and she has to come back to the insidious town of Neptune, California, and try to help a friend who has been accused of murder. And halfway through, I'm a little more invested in the characters, but it's really for fans, I think.
Well, for me, it's a must-miss.
I love the sound of that. I really do.
That's a term. That's a term the girlfriend came up with a long time ago. And we'll be sitting in a theater, and she'll see the preview, and she'll go, "That's a must miss."
Yeah, I think she's probably right about that. Okay, let's real quickly talk about a couple of documentaries I want people to be aware of. The Missing Picture is a very strange and unique documentary about the Khmer Rouge massacres that happened in Cambodia between 1975 and 79, told by one of the survivors using little figurines to tell the story. It's not really stop motion animation, but it's a documentary with some archival footage and first person accounts of the horrors of what happened in Cambodia in terms of mass slaughter. The Missing Picture, I think, was also nominated for an Academy Award. It's like nothing I've ever seen, and I didn't think it was great, but I thought it was very moving in places. Now, two documentaries.
Khmer Rouge always sounded to me like the name of a fragrance,
Yeah, the fragrance of blood. Finding Vivian Maier actually is one of the coolest documentaries I've seen in a very long time. I went to a gallery exhibition of the work of a photographer named Vivian Maier. I had no idea who she was, and it turns out that it's one of the most amazing stories to emerge in contemporary art in years. She was a socially repressed nanny, very private and idiosyncratic single woman, and shot over 100,000 photographs during more than 40 years of her life.
Wow.
And only had a small percentage of them developed before she died in 2009. This archival type named John Maloof gets a tip or lucks into a cache of her photographs at an estate sale. And it turns out, as he goes through them and starts getting them developed, she is one of the greatest street photographers.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about this woman. Yeah.
In American art. Vivian Maier. An amazing selection of self-portraits, urban vistas, poignant looks at people's lives in progress, the sordid side, a few celebrity shots. She does a thing at one point where you see Sinatra getting an award or some kind of civic event where Sinatra's at. And then these pictures of Chicago and various cities. It turns out she was a French immigrant. They begin finding people that knew her. They talk to some of the kids that she was the nanny over. They find some of the parents who hired her, and you get this picture of a very kind of troubled woman with some really freaky idiosyncrasies who is seriously she's on a par with the likes of Diane Arbus, Ouija, and Robert Frank. This stuff is amazing. Yeah. Vivian Maier, terrific documentary.
Great. So that's pretty much it?
Yeah,
there's one film I want to see. Have you heard about Jodorowsky's Dune?
I did, and you know what? I can tell you a little bit about it.
Yeah.
It's pretty wonderful. It's funny that you brought it up. It was sort of on the back burner here, and I was maybe going to talk about it or maybe save it for the next episode. But I will tell you this. This guy, Alexander Jodorowsky, was in fact a strange and visionary of the early 70s.
I disagree with you on the way you describe him, because I peripherally knew Jodorowsky because his film became very famous because it became a midnight showing at a theater here in New York at the time, and then
which El Topo or the Holy Mountain?
El Topo. And then they brought him to town and stuff, and I think I even had him on my radio show. And any feeling I had about him personally was that this was the biggest con artist in the world, because there was no substance to any of his stuff. It was all what I called phony art. And he pretentious, no substance. Come on, tell me, what was El Topo about?
Wasn't it about the little Italian mouse on the Ed Sullivan show?
Exactly. And then he did the Holy Mountain, which flopped terribly. So
okay, midnight movies for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, the guy's from Chile, and in 1975, after doing these films, he convinces a major French producer named Michel Seydoux to team up with him to do a big screen adaptation of Frank Herbert's way popular sci-fi novel Dune. And this is before the David Lynch Dune. Yeah. And he starts lining talent up. He's going to have Orson Welles and David Carradine and Mick Jagger and Salvador Dali in this thing. He's going to have his own 12-year-old son play Paul, the central figure in the Dune novel. And he gets Pink Floyd on board. And then he starts looking for talent. And who he chooses to do the art direction ends up being pivotal. He chooses H.R. Geiger and Mobius. And he also starts talking to Dan O'Bannon. All these people put together an entire storyboard book of the movie that is astonishing, with all these beautiful designs by these French, the German and the French artists. And the stuff is brought to Hollywood, and nobody will bite. And what ends up happening is these guys end up going off and doing Alien and inspiring things like the opening of Contact and Giraud, Mobius. teams up with Jodorowsky, and they do these graphic novels called The Inkle that become very, very popular. Mm-hmm. And it's incredibly influential. And this is the story of what happened when they tried to pull this together. And, I thought it was very, very cool.
It's an offbeat subject, and that's what I found so fascinating about it. I think I'm going to go try and see it this weekend.
I think you should. And you also, if you like science, that's science fiction, you might want to check out Particle Fever, which is an amazing and shockingly entertaining and interesting look at the Large Hadron Collider project in Switzerland, where scientists decide, hey, we want to find out about the building blocks of the universe. There's something out there called the Higgs boson particle that's been theorized.
Right.
And we think it's the glue that holds the universe together, the God particle, and we're going to smash a couple of electrons or protons together.
Well,
and see what happens.
actually, they never called it the God particle. Somebody else just called it that. Basically, and they don't like to call it the God particle because then you get all these God freaks coming down your back on this stuff.
Well, I don't want to get. I'm an agnostic, but anyway, it's pretty amazing stuff, and. I was fascinated, and it turned out that Walter Murch, who was the editor on Apocalypse Now, he edited this thing, and it's very exciting despite what seems like a very dry subject.
Yeah.
Finally, Muppets Most Wanted is out there with Ricky Gervais, Tina Fey, and a whole lot of other people, and it was pleasant for the family. That's all I can tell you.
Okay, that's good. Better than a good family film now and then. I haven't seen much of anything. I'll tell you what I did watch. There was a Danish series called, I think, Those Who Kill. I'm trying to remember the name of it now.
Well, wait, speaking of that, the Swedish chef makes an appearance in this Muppets movie. Oh, never mind.
Okay. Anyway, the name of the show, by the way, in Europe was Those Who Kill. And it was in Denmark. And it's kind of, they did, I think maybe even it was the same company that did The Killing. And it was very popular over there. So they decided, let's do an American version of it. And so they got Brian Grazer to produce it, and they got Chloe Sevigny to star in it. And A&E put it on for 2 weeks. And because it wasn't getting good ratings, canned it. They'd shot 13 episodes, and they say they're going to show them eventually. But so I decided I'd go somewhere and watch the first episode to see what it was like. And actually, it was pretty goddamn good. It was very scary, very dark. And why they only gave it two episodes, especially on a cable network, is beyond me. I mean, cable networks will stick with something. They don't give up on it just because it didn't do as well as the show that led into it, Bates Motel.
Wow.
So it's kind of sad. But who knows? Somebody may pick it up if you get a chance to watch it. I was just amazed that it was as good as it was. And whatever. Then let's see here. CW has a thing called The 100 that they started. About a bunch of juvenile delinquents who have to go back to Earth as a canary in a coal mine to see if it's safe to be down there anymore. And I kind of enjoyed that. But, the basic things we're all, I guess, getting ready to watch is a game of What the Fuck's Going On.
Hey, come on. I follow it pretty good with my little guide. I have a little handheld guide.
To me, if you're making a film and you got to have a guide, you haven't made yourself a good film.
I'm kidding. I was just trying to make you feel better. I have no problem following it. Oh, you know what? I've been discovering on Hulu, Line of Duty from the UK. A pretty damn good policier. Pretty damn good police procedural.
It sounded like somebody left a trail of feces. Line of Duty.
Well, I didn't say Line of Dookie, for God's sake, man.
Yeah. But
anyway, yeah.
Well, that's about it, I guess, huh?
Let it roll, buddy.
Yeah. We'll. What's coming up next week? Anything we should know about?
More movies and new TV. And may I please direct your listeners and mine to Twitter, where you can follow me at Culture Blaster. And if you want to hear this show separate from the Great American Broadcast machine, you can go to Michael Snyder's Culture Blast on Facebook and like it.
Okay. I thank you so much, Michael. We'll see you next week.
Okie doke.
Michael Snyder's Culture Blast, folks.